Shabbos, thanks for joining us. We will begin this evening with Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh is a poem. It's found in the Siddur on page number 10. And this is the first stanza sung by a synagogue choir from the metropolitan area of Phoenix, Arizona, named Temple High. I came across it some years ago, and I think it's just a beautiful melody. It's presented here by members of a congregational choir, shared voices of a community. Yedid Nefesh is an alphabetical acrostic poem. And if you look at the four stanzas, you see the first stanza begins with a yud, the second stanza begins with a hey, the third stanza beginning with a vav, the fourth stanza beginning with a hey. In effect, the stanzas spell out the hidden, infinitely sublime name of God. And tonight, the first stanza on page number 10, a poetic presentation of each one of us having a soul, and that soul is aspiring to be closer to God. Yedid Nefesh.
Yedid Nefesh Harachamon, Yedid Nefesh Harachamon, V'shachavtecha Eretzonecha, V'shachavtecha La 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 Eretzonecha Yarutz Avtecha Yishtachave la 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 Emulat Orecha Yarutz Avtecha Yishtachave la 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 Emulat Yedid Nefesh Harachamon, Yedid Nefesh Harachamon, V'shachavtecha Eretzonecha V'shachavtecha Ya la 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 la
From a choir in Arizona. And now on page 11, the L'churanah, Saul K. joins us with a little bit of a slightly different twang. L'churanah. Come on, folks, let's sing Saul K.
L'Adonai, Nari Aletu Yidenu, Yananananai, Yananai, Yanananai, Yanananai. ומלך גדול על כל אלוהים ינננננאי יננננאי יננננאי אשר בידו מחקרי הרב Torah for Harim, oh, Asher lo hayam asa, ve'avet sheyada ya na 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 na, ya na na, ya na 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 na, ya na na na. B'hu nishkachave, v'nikra tivcha alifnei Adonai. Seinu, Eloheinu, v'anachnu ma'ito, Yishma, ya na 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 na, ya na na, ya na 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 na, ya na na na, ya na 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 na, ya na na, ya na 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 na, ya na na
Arbim shalakut v'dor v'alanto elevavhem v'hem loidu drachoi asher nishpati v'api im yavon el menuchati. Nativ brings us along with Shiru Ladonai. Come on, sing a song to God. It's on page 13. Remembering I introduced you to Nativ about 15 years ago. At the time, it was a group of students on their gap year between senior in high school and freshman year in college in Jerusalem, and they formed a choir, and they produced 2 or 3 CDs, which are still out there floating, beautiful melodies. On page number 13, sing a song to God. 3,000 years ago, David or someone else within his musical group, his cadre, you might say, was just taken by the idea of singing, that he, the composer, the poet, called out, said, everything in the universe has to sing to God. Plants, animals. And now we have a modern take on that melody. It's on page 14. It's the last little stanza beginning with the red arrow or found in the transliteration. This is a Craig Talman modern take, but it's on that same theme of what does it mean to be of a certain framework where the whole world is united in song. Yes, Michael.
Yama my 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 yama my 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 yama my 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 yama my 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 yama my 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 yama my 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 yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam Melo Yismechu hashamayim V'tagel haaretz Yiram hayam Melo Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my my Yama my my Yama my Yama my my Yama my my Yama my my Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my 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 Yama my my my
On page 19 on the English side, on page 19, Adonai reigns, nations tremble. The one enthroned amidst the cherubim makes the world quake. Adonai is great in Sion, above all nations. They shall acknowledge your name, saying, Great, awe-inspiring, Holy One. The sovereign strength lies in the love of justice. And you forged the paths of truth, judging Jacob righteously and justly. We'll stop there. The sovereign's strength lies in the love of justice. Which other words could be more appropriate for us to consider in these very turbulent times? The sovereign strength lies in the love of justice. Truly, there's nothing more poetic, more compelling, more musical than even reciting these words. And on page 20, the conclusion of the English side. Moses and Aaron among God's priests, and Samuel among those who called upon the divine name, called to you, and you answered them. You spoke to them from amidst the cloud. They kept your covenant and the law you gave them. You answered them, Adonai, our God. You were a forgiving God to them, even as you punished them for their transgressions. Exalt Adonai, our God, and bow down at God's holy mountain. For Adonai, our God, is holy. Years ago, I was troubled by this stanza. I would ask myself, why would this stanza, which speaks of you were forgiving God, but you punished them for their transgressions, be incorporated into the Kabbalat Shabbat service, the service which is leading us to that pinnacle of awareness? Shabbat's walking in the door. Why talk about punishment and sin? And I began to realize as the years went by, every day is an opportunity for forgiveness. Even Shabbat is an opportunity for forgiveness. The other side of forgiveness is love. Not Valentine's Day love, but love of and for and about humanity, whether we are very close or just acquainted with someone else. And once that clicked inside my head, I began to view this psalm differently and making sense as being part of the doorway to Lecha Dodi. Every day is an opportunity for forgiveness and love and starting afresh.
Yalla la 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 Lecha Dodi. Yalla la 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 Nikrat Kala. Yalla la 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 Pinei Shabbat. Pinei Shabbat Nikabel. Yalla la 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 Lecha Dodi. Yalla la 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 Nikrat Kala. Yalla la 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 Pinei Shabbat. Pinei Shabbat Nikabel. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד כי השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ותפארת ולתהילה Yalla la yalla la 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 לקראת דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת לקראת אלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, יהי מכל הברכה, מראש מקדם נס יוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תהילה, יאללה לה יאללה לה לה לקראת דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת לקראת אלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בלה, גם בשמחה וצהלה, תוך אמוני עם תגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת לקראת, יאללה לה 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 לקראת דודי, יאללה לה 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 לקראת כלה, יאללה לה 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 פני שבת לקראת.
As we remain standing, we turn to page 29. The concluding of the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat before we move to the Ma'arit service. Adonai is sovereign, robed in splendor, girded in strength. The earth stands firm, not to be dislodged. From earliest time you were enthroned, you are eternal. The rivers rise up, Adonai. The rivers raise up their roar. The rivers raise up their waves. Above the roar of the vast sea and the majestic breakers of the ocean, Adonai stands supreme in the heavens. In your house, beautiful in its holiness, your testimonies endure, Adonai, for all time. What is God's house, or rather, what is not God's house? Not only is it everything of, we would say, physical reality, of space and time, but it must be everything of conceptual reality, of idea, of thought, of concern, of love, of compassion, of beauty, of hope, of artistry, of caring. In your house, beautiful in its holiness, your testimonies endure, Adonai. Everything that is of the beauty and of caring and of constructive and of hopeful quality and perspective is and within and perpetuates God's house. And you and I have an opportunity to strengthen God's house by bringing kindness and support and respect and gentleness into the physical world every single day. We are seated, turning to page 39b. Excuse me. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space. You completed your work of creation on the seventh day, calling this day from one evening to the next the holy Shabbat, and gave this day of rest in all its holiness to your people Israel, creator of day and night, bringing light before darkness, and darkness from light, making day past and bringing on the evening, distinguishing day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Elchai v'kayom, tamid yimloch alein olam v'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. On page number 40, the second bracha of the evening service, every single night of the year, we assert that God loves us. And the love that God has for humanity, and within our context, within our Jewish prayer system, the love that God has for the people of Israel is as much a part of the waning of the sunlight and then on the morrow of the sun's return. Love is as real as day and night. On page 40. With timeless love, you have loved your people, the house of Israel. You have taught us Torah and mitzvot, statutes and laws. Therefore, Adonai, our God, as we lie down and as we rise up, we shall speak of your laws, rejoice in the words of your Torah and in your mitzvot forever and ever. For there our life and the fullness of our days, and on them we shall meditate day and night. Yavotachal tasir mimenu olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Page 41. Shema Yisrael, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavcha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol me'odecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, B'shivtecha b'beitecha, u'b'lechtecha b'derech, u'b'shachbecha b'kumecha, u'kishartam lot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, u'b'sharecha. A few moments. Page 42. Adonai Elohechem emet. On page 43b, on the English side, in the left margin, the last three stanzas. You, our Creator, are mindful of your handiwork. Your ordinances are all conceived in wisdom. You commanded us to cease from our labor, that we might find joy and peace in Shabbat. For we were not made only to labor. We must rest and reflect that we may sense your presence. We thank you, our Creator, for the gift of Shabbat, your gift to Israel that blesses all of humanity. On page 44. U'malchuto baratzon kiblu alehem Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael l'chanu shira v'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam mi chamocha u'elim Adonai mi chamocha Nedar v'kodesh norat ilot osek feleh malchut necha ra'u v'necha bokeh yam lifnei Moshe zeli anu v'amro Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed V'ne'emar, ki fadarno et Yaakov, u'galo mi'ar chazak mimeno, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. On page 45, the English, the Hashkivenu, and then in a moment, Ufros, a more contemporary melody. Beginning on page 45 on the English side. Hashkivenu, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Remove from us enemies, pistols, swords, duration, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you, God, watch over and deliver us. And you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah. Spread the canopy of peace over us. Israel. Two folks.
Ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shlomecha. Ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shlomecha. Yalai lalai, yalai lalai, yalai lalai lalai lalai, yalai lalai, yalai lalai, yalai lalai lalai lalai. Ufros aleinu sukat, sukat, shlomecha. Yalai lalai, Yalai lalai, yalai lalai lalai lalai, yalai lalai, yalai lalai, yalai lalai lalai lalai.
And on the top of page 46, Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וילחם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ובני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם, ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וילחש, וביום השביעי שבת וילחש.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ובחייכון וביום אחד ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בגולה ובזמן קריב תאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמי. יתברך וישתבח יתברך וינשא ויתהדר, ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה ברכו לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא אמרו amen. We just chanted the Chatzi Kaddish, which we always say in every service just before an Amidah. Why? Number one, tradition. One of the most famous prayers that we have. But I want to draw our attention once again to the word Shmei, which means the name. Shmei Rabbah, the great name, that's the first line. Then the middle stanza, Yehei Shmei Rabbah, the great name. And then next to Brichu, we have Shmei Dekudsha, the holy name. In front of every Amidah, we remind ourselves of the importance of God's name So as we prepare to start the Amida, the silent prayer, we're reminding ourselves of whom we're addressing. And each and every one of us most certainly could have a different way of understanding God, of, you might say, coining or making up your own personal name for God. And that's what I want us to consider this evening in just a moment as we rise. How would you name God in your own mind, in your own conception? How would you name God such that you are now ready to engage privately in a personal prayer? The traditional text, pages 47 through 52, or a prayer of our own devising. We rise in silence. I'm dating myself. This is our Siddur. A generation ago, this was our Siddur, and we hefted it with love, and sometimes with tears. 2 generations ago, and before that, this was our Siddur. And if you roll back the time, 1,000 years, which is when what you and I call printed Siddur began, only 1,000 years ago. Prior to that, Siddurim were compilations of, we would say, loose leaf, loose sheets, occasional bits of paper, often held together, and frankly, often under the auspices of traveling chazanim and rabbis who had their own, and the prayers had been handed down, and people were familiar enough with them that they would say Amen when the traveling chazan or shamash came through. And it was for a span of some 500-600 years that was the norm, with, we would say, loose sheets of paper being held as a compilation by the leader and sometimes people in the synagogue. But it's been only for the past 1,000 years that what you and I take for granted, a Siddur that's been in established form has been in established form. And in every one of those Siddurim for the past 1,000 years across the Jewish world, the daily morning service begins with words spoken by a non-Jew. The Matovu. Matovu alech Yaakov. How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob. Mishkanotecha Yisrael, your dwelling places, O Israel. For 1,000 years, the morning service in the hardback Siddur has been opened by Matovu, which was originally uttered by a pagan. How am I to make sense of that? And we roll back the time 2,000 years before the 1,000-year ago beginning point, 3,000 plus years ago to this week's Torah reading. The people of Israel are inching closer and closer to Canaan. And there's a Canaanite king over there. He doesn't want the Israelites to approach. And so he engages a soothsayer. And the soothsayer is Bilam. And Bilam comes along and he's contracted. He's a contract employee. I wonder if he had a W-2 or a 1099. And he's engaged to curse the people of Israel. And on 3 different occasions, he opens his mouth. And just at the last microsecond, as he's about to open his mouth and insult and curse and deride the people of Israel to weaken them so that they will fare poorly in battle, as the words are about to come out of his lips, they come forth, but not as curse, but as blessing. Once, twice, thrice. And the 3rd occasion, he's about to really let the people of Israel have it and say, you first Shunkan people, you don't deserve to come into Canaan. We're going to wipe the... Instead, Matovu alech Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael, emerges from his lips. How beautiful are your tents. All of your dwelling places, O Israel, wherever you are lovely and pleasing to the eye. And he goes on to continue to bless the people of Israel. And I'm struck by this because, of course, the presentation in the Torah is that his words miraculously are transformed from insult and curse to blessing and admiration. He's a pagan. His intention was to insult and to bring low so that he would get a paycheck, doing a job to deride and to vilify for the sake of remuneration. But at the last moment, as the air is passing through his articulating organs, that last microsecond, words that were going to be cruel and seeking a target instead are pleasant and glorious and uplifting. And somebody very smart, when we finalized the loose leaf sheet of papers and gathered prayers into a hardback, said, we're going to put the Matovu here in the early morning service. And every time a Jew walks into a synagogue, the first words out of his mouth are going to be quoting the words of a man who initially wanted to insult and accuse. And it teaches us, when you and I heft a prayer book, you and I have the opportunity, even at the last moment of what we were planning on saying, to transform our words. And now if we step out of the synagogue, and you and I are going out in our daily lives, into a workspace, a gathering place, wherever it might be, and you and I have made up our minds to be insulting and mean-spirited or nasty, not you, certainly, of course, only me. As I open my mouth and I'm ready to let somebody have it, even until that last second, I still have the capacity to miraculously transform my words into words of blessing. And that's why having the Matovu, words of a pagan, in 2 generations ago, 1 generation ago, our current prayer book, or for the past 30 generations or more, is so incredibly uplifting and inspirational that you and I can emulate a man who ordinarily we would not want to emulate. But he had a transformation at that last microsecond. What would we be like if instead of waiting until the last microsecond, we weren't transformed, but even a few moments before, as we were ready to start talking, we were already transformed? That is the power of the Matovu from tomorrow's Torah reading in the Siddur, and that is the heritage that you and I can share with all Jewish people everywhere. We have the capacity to alter our words before they exit. What will our world be like when every single Jew alters her and his words prior to their leaving our lips? And because we are considered a light unto the nations, we can emulate that for others. What will our world be like when other people learn this lesson, shared initially from a pagan to Israelites, and now Jews to the world at large? We have a moment. Let's not waste it. We rise, V'Aleinu, on page number 56. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula li'otzeh breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'goraleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamalachim hakadosh baruch hu, shehu noteh shamayim v'yosed haaretz, Moshav Yekaro Bashamayim Mima'al, Ushchinat Uzo, Begov Hei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu En Od, Emet Malkeinu Efezulato Kakatuf Bitorato Yodata Hayom Yodata Hayom Vashevota Helavavecho Ki Adonai Hua Elohim Bashamayim Mimol Yal Haaretz Yal Haaretz Mitachot Enud Enos. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch la'olam va'ed v'nemar v'ahaya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad O Shema, O Shema, O Shema Echad. The Mourner's Kaddish will be on page number 58. Page number 58. And again, as we mentioned earlier, the word Shmei Rabbah, the great name, God's great name, Shmei Kudsha, name of holiness. And bearing them in mind as we call forth the names of our loved ones. We're merging the names of our loved ones. We're attaching the names of our loved ones with the name of God. Sarah Rosen, Barry Weinstein, Rose Tenzer, Sarah Mashevsky, Dr. Joseph B. Miller, Eve Perlman, Abraham Rothenberg, Judy Handman, Fanny Lips, Abraham Schwartz, Philip Liebeskind, Jacob Rubenstein, Raymond Hirsch, Miriam, that's Mickey Letterman, Ida Petite, Annie Buckman Stein, Rose Stein, Hyman Rudnick, Arthur Miller, that's Tubby, Hannah Grodsky, George Topper, Paige Sass, Randy Sherman just lost her brother, Eric Milak, and Al Kolinsky's mother-in-law, Shirley Browning, just died. We're thinking about Jackson Martin. Are there any other names to mention? Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabo amen. Be'olma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimeru amen. Yehei shnei rabo nevarach la'olam olomei olmaya yitbarach yishtabach yitpa'ar yitromah Yitnaseh, Yithadar, Yitaleh, Yitalal, Shemei, Yikudashah, Refu, Laela, Minko, Berchata, Veshirata, Tushkechata, Nechemata, Da'ami Ranba Olma, Vimaru, Amen. Yehei, Shalama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, Bechayim, Olenu, Yalkol Yisrael, V'imeru, Amen. Useh Shalom B'mramav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu, Yalkol Yisrael, V'imeru, Amen. May we be strong enough to share our love with those who are marking sorrow and grief. We'll conclude in a few minutes with the Adon Olam on page 211. Pardon me. Reminders, of course, Shabbos morning tomorrow, and we're having a lunch because we're back in, I can't say the saddle again, we're back in the chair again. Back in the mode of eating. So, that's my kid. So that's, of course, tomorrow night, Zoom Havdalah is at 8 o'clock. Monday's Tanakh study, and Tuesday Adult Hebrew is on YouTube, and Tuesday Spirit is on Zoom. And next Friday is Guitar Shabbat. We're excited about Yehuda's being back on the Bima in person. And again, looking a little bit further ahead, on July 24th, which is Sunday, the Federation-sponsored Summer Film Festival continues here. There was an exceptional film the other day at the Art Museum, and in the Shabbat Thought email that I just sent out, I shared a link in case you weren't able to see it. You can get it on Amazon streaming. If you have any questions, contact me. It was an exceptional film. And in 2 weeks on the 24th, 1 week on the 24th, on Sunday, there's a reception, and the meal, the nibbles that are brought are going to be vegetarian fare, Middle Eastern yummies, and it's included in the cost of the ticket, so no additional cost. And it's an exciting film. And I'll stop there. The Adon Olam that I've selected tonight is a very well-known melody. It's on page 211 in Israel. It's very popular. And this specific group that's singing the Adon Olam is a group of singers led by a cantor, and they serve in the IDF. Specifically, they got their start as a naval ensemble in the IDF. And after the notes in the social hall.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא הוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה שמו נקרא וככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא יהיה בתפארה שבת בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל והוא היה והוא עובד בתפארה והוא עובד והוא יהיה בתפארה אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו שמו נקרא אחרי ככלות הכל ימלוך הוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה שמה בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפצו כל אזי והוא היה והוא עומד, ותתברא והוא עומד והוא יהיה, ותתברא והוא היה והוא עומד, ותתברא והוא עומד והוא יהיה, ותתברא.
Shabbat Shalom.